Good evening, everyone. Hello, hello. I hope everyone's well. So I managed to have a productive couple of days, and the key block for the first Evangelion print is finished. So we need something to carve. So this is the next design. This is what we're going to start with, and probably we're just going to work on that until I've finished the tracing for the Patreon design. Tracing that Patreon image on stream is not going to be enjoyable for you guys, so we might as well get some carving done in the meantime. And we have another robot to go with. I'm going to clear that off for now. And let's get going. Yes, my eye is a lot better, just itchy, but I can see out of it now. It was I look like someone had given me a whack in the face the other day. Thank you, Meltdown. Yeah, it's by Jed Henry. It's from Evangelion. Cool 90s anime, and this is second design in a series of 3. But yeah, there's, like I said, there's quite a few bits to talk about. Some regarding Patreon, etc., etc. Hi, Ben. So I had a good long sort of 2-hour conversation with Dave this afternoon about different aspects of how these prints were actually made back in the day, back in the Edo period, when the original Hiroshige series was produced. And there's some very interesting sort of points come up in regards to paper and pigments and how that was all handled. There's not too much there's not too much I particularly want to say, because I'd like to save it all for this first Patreon video, but it seems to be turning into quite an extensive and interesting project, putting this series of videos together. So thanks to Dave and the guys at the Ashmolean and stuff, I have a lot of threads to pull now. Ben, how did your gigantic print go? How are you getting on with it? Hi, George. and hopefully over the next couple of weeks, off the back of speaking with Dave and trying to, a big issue that I've had with this the only issue I've had so far with the Patreon series is been finding really good quality images to work from, to produce my tracings from. And the sort of the option that I had resorted to was purchasing a photo, or commissioning a photo to be produced by the Ashmolean, and then using for one of the designs, and using Dave's scan he had for the other. And the scan that Dave's got is a later reproduction, which is fine. It's not quite the best produced image in terms of the carving and stuff, but that's not a problem because I can compare and contrast with older images. But the other option I had thought of was to just purchase a version of the print and then make a reproduction from that. And in the UK, there isn't a great many dealers in Japanese woodblock prints, and the ones that do are very, very expensive. So, for example, the closest one to me, they have very good quality prints, but they were post-war reproductions. They had both of the images that I'm looking to produce, but the price per print was £2,000 per print. And for that, I could probably get a flight to Tokyo, get a good hotel, have a good dinner, and go buy one and get a flight home. It's ridiculous, the prices that we have for these prints over here. So Dave suggested Yahoo Auctions, and it just so happened that there is a set, it's 30 of them, it's not the full set, that was commissioned by the National Tourism Board in, I think, 1959, and if I remember correctly, was produced by the same craftsmen's association that Dave was a part of when he first came to Japan. So he knows or he knew the people that made the prints, so he can attest for them being of a good quality. And he's placed a bid on my behalf, so hopefully tomorrow he sends me an email saying the bid was successful and I'm shipping the prints over to you, and I will then be the owner of a set of 30 of the Views of Edo series. It doesn't have the wisteria print in, the first print in the series, but that's not a problem because I have Dave's good copy. But the second one, the Suijin Shrine one, is part of that set. But that also means that we are not then hamstrung down the line. We're not going to experience this problem because we can use this series and we can make our tracings and colour blocks based on the series that I own. But anyway, enough rambling. Let me read the chat. Wow, 21 inches long. So the three registration marks worked then. So you had one corner, one middle, and one on the far end. Did you just lay the sheet down as a whole piece, or did you roll it out over to the registration marks? Yeah, I know Fuji Arts. I brought prints from Fuji Arts in the past, and I would have gone to them also. They just, unfortunately, those two particular prints are very, very popular and go almost instantly. So trying to get hold of a copy is a bit harder. But I don't know the final what the final bid will be. But there was currently no bids on it, and it was going for £147, £148 or something. So if we manage to get it, then that would be fantastic. If not, we'll figure it out. What else is there to update you guys on? Studio renovation. We have took order of the cedar cladding for the exterior and the doors and frames. So the task this weekend will be get the door frames and doors in situ. We actually came into possession of a large set of double French doors, which are going to go on my gable end. So there's a couple of little alterations to make in the framework, which is easy enough. And then it will be time to damp proof the building and get the cedar cladding up. So progress will come along rapidly from that. Yeah, I've George, I've told Dave a maximum that I want to go on it, that I can afford to go, and he gets prints from there all the time, so he'll handle it for me. Paper laid down. Oh, that's good, Ben. Have you got is there any images on your Instagram yet, or is this going to be the next step? Oh, okay. How many colour blocks do you have on top of the key? I can't. I know you said. I'm sorry. I can't remember. But other news, non Patreon or studio related, but still print related. Sat down with Jed this afternoon, and we've figured out the next the next 12 months worth of work. His subscription series with Dave is going to be rather demanding for him, so that quite rightly takes priority over everything else. This past year he's had a bit more time because Dave's done his own his own subscriber series. So we've sort of gone through the data, looked at what's doing well and stuff in Jickley form, and we've got a really exciting mix of prints to run through over the next year. They're all going to be larger size. There's sort of a good variation in printing and carving styles. Oh, so the studio. So, sorry, Ben. So it's divided in half. One side is my dad's workshop. There's a partition wall in between. One side's my dad's workshop and storeroom, and the other side is my studio / block storage. So yeah, there won't be an issue with that. Sorry, I wasn't clear. But we have work scheduled. We have obviously the third one in this series. We're working through essentially each. We're working through sets of prints now, so we're not just going to be picking odd ones. So there is this 3, then a set of 2, and then finally a set of 3. Trying to keep a bit of like continuity and stuff, and they're all newer designs in Jed's catalogue that he's designed as to be one day used as woodblock prints. So there's not too much work on his end to sort of shimmy the files around to make them usable for me. Oh, so you just got one colour. Oh, you should be fine. 2 weeks then. Have any of you guys entered into the Origami mini print exhibition? I think applications are still open. If not, I think you all should. I say anyone making prints that I've seen their work that comes into this chat and stuff could easily place quite well in the final standings. I can't quite remember what the theme is, but I think it might be, I can't remember, it might be Sumi or something, I can't remember. But you should all definitely apply to it. I'm right, if I remember correctly, I think Laura Boswell won 1 year and received a ton of paper from them. So it'd definitely be worthwhile if you guys are printing with. I didn't enter. I think applications are still open, Ben. Let me just check. I'm sure they're still open. No, it's sorry. Ignore me completely. It closed. I'm sure there was another one I was looking at. Ignore me completely. The applications have closed. No, I didn't enter. I didn't really have anything to enter. It was either Patreon prints, which I probably could have done, or Jed's ones, and I can't really enter Jed's images into competitions and stuff. I did think about doing it, and then I didn't know if it'd be. I'm not presuming that I'd win, but hypothetically, if I were to have won and say got a prize of a load of paper, I probably wouldn't be using it. So I thought maybe a giveaway or something would be good, but I didn't know whether that was a bit weird to give away a load of things like that. How are the lino cuts going, George? So, I got a question, sort of a little bit rhetorical, but it's sort of interesting to think about. It's something that me and Dave were speaking about earlier in regards to these old prints and things, and reproductions, or just working in this sort of traditional medium. Is so how far do you sort of take tradition? How far do you go in the name of tradition? And what I mean by that is so we obviously when we're printing, we use a synthetic rice paste, and we do this mainly because it's a lot easier to use, a lot easier to do that than to keep continuously cooking up batches of glutinous rice and turning it into the paste that's necessary to print with. And we use modern pigments instead of pigments made from flowers and natural products. Some of the pigments that we use are synthetic. And we use a printer and computer to print our handshters on, and highlighters to do our colour separations, as opposed to tracing an image with a brush, or using vermilion ink to paint onto the Kyogo to make colour separations with. So how far can you even call yourself a traditional craftsman or traditional printmaker if you're not following these sort of traditional principles and traditional methods? So then how far do you go in the name of tradition? And does that then affect your sort of legacy or marketability and your ability to sell things for a higher price? Because people are very willing to pay a premium price for a product that is traditionally made and handcrafted and something that uses all the old methods. So is it slightly cheating by not doing that, or are we in fact enhancing these images by, for example, using a modern pigment that is more light fast and isn't going to fade off the page in 4 or 5 years? How far do you take it? And this is quite interesting. Me and Dave had quite a long discussion about that. Is this the, George, is that the print that I saw the other day? Yeah, so to you guys, if you walked into, say I've got a print shop and you walk in and I hold the same identical print up to you, and it's the eagle print from the Patreon series, and I say to you, one of these, they're both made in the same year, but one of them is made really traditionally. All the pigments are exactly as were used in the early 1800s, and the paste that's used whilst printing is made from glutinous rice flour, and the brushes have all been treated on a shark skin just as they would have been. And then I show you another one, same print, and I say this was made using synthetic shoji screen glue that imitates the rice paste, and all the pigments are synthetic modern day pigments, and the tracing was made using Photoshop. Would you be willing to pay the same price for it, or does it, in your mind, command a more premium price for the more traditional work that has gone into it? Oh, you haven't posted it yet? I'm sure I'll see it soon. Do make sure to post to the Facebook group. The longer the story, the more expensive though. Yeah. Yeah, true. But it's an interesting point. Are we traditional printmakers, or are we in fact modern day contemporary printmakers? Yes, I agree. That's my exact sentiments there. Meltdown. I prioritize longevity and quality above everything else. So to me, using some newer materials, um, so using a light, fast pigment that I can ensure to the customer that isn't going to fade off the page in a couple of years, and that they've got to hide it away in a box in a cupboard so that it doesn't disappear, and that there's going to be no potential for mold in the pigments or in the paste because I've left it out of the fridge too long or haven't cooked it up in a few days, and I can use a synthetic paste, and I can ensure my hand stir is pasted down correctly and there's no warping and misregistration occurring right at the very start of the process. I will always prioritize that over following a prescribed set of traditional rules. From a research and maybe an academic point of view, it's interesting, the concept of trying to do something with all of these old pigments and processes and things like that. But ultimately, it depends. It's completely dependent on, do you want to make really nice prints that are going to stand the test of time and sell indefinitely, or do you want to learn more about how they made and used pigments in the 1700s? Yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get that, Ben. Yeah, and it's, at the end of the day, I am still carving exactly the same way the prints were carved for the past 300 years and longer. Essentially, the act of printing is exactly the same. The paper I use is from a workshop that's been around for hundreds of years. Those aspects of the process are never going to change because they've already been made as good as they can be made. There's a reason why CNC machine cut wood blocks are not all over the place now, because it's better to do it this way. And it's not about just mindlessly recreating an image. But there's certain aspects that can be modernised. And that should be modernised. Are you talking about Shimoy-san, George? I follow him on Instagram. And it's interesting to see what he does. From my own academic point of view, it's interesting, and that's what he wants to do with his time, and he's enjoying himself. And I would assume he also has a slight better access to the old information than I do, himself being in Japan and stuff. Yeah, I think it is Shimoi-san. I like to think so, Nigel. That is certainly the goal. I do this because I love doing it, but I also do it because I don't want to see this go away. And me and Jed speak about this all the time. How what Jed is doing now is the same as Hokusai and Hiroshige and Hokkei and Kuniyoshi and stuff did all those years ago. He is taking popular culture and he's turning them into ukiyo-e prints. And that's exactly what all those guys did all throughout. And I'm sure if Hokusai had access to Photoshop to slightly alter that line that he disliked, then he would have used it. But certainly my goal is to keep this alive as long as possible. And it's quite interesting in that it seems to me that something like Japanese woodblock prints, the community and the sort of people surrounding the production of these things doesn't need to be huge for it to survive. What it needs is people that are dedicated and very good, that have a desire to spread the word and show people, because ultimately there's going to always be far more consumers than there are makers, and really the consumers are what is most important at the end of the day, because without people buying the prints there's no point in us making the prints. So as long as there's a few men or women that are committed to making good prints and spreading the message, then I don't think there'll ever be, certainly not in my lifetime, of it fading off into nothing. Yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah. The arts and crafts movement. But they also revolutionised production techniques and employed mass manufacturing processes to those old crafts. Morris and Burne-Jones with the tapestries, and the furniture makers and stained glass makers and stuff. They took traditional crafts and applied modern industrial production methods to them, and we're able to then spread the word. Definitely, paper is the absolute most fragile part of the whole the whole house of cards. Wood is not in a great state. There's not a lot of great wood around, but there is at least access to usable wood. Dave has bought loads. We have a fair bit. There is options there, at least. The largest and most concerning issue of all is paper. And it's not that there's no paper around. There is really good quality paper. It's the lack of people that are interested in continuing the production and that are able to keep that quality level and be able to sustain that for the needs and the demands of the people making the prints. Yes, that's correct. That is correct, Nigel. Yeah. And it will always... The process will always adapt. It always has to adapt to the times. Not necessarily adapt. Evolve, as you said. Like we are able now to produce images with more blocks, giving us a deeper level of colour that we are able to potentially reach nowadays, because global inflation means that we can charge more money for prints as compared to what prices would have been for prints back then, which gives us the chance to sort of push the boundary a little bit more in terms of what can be done with blocks and colour. There are obviously limitations on that, but the possibilities are there. And one other thing, slightly more intangible, maybe a bit vague, is I do feel like that concept of tradition does lie within the mindset somewhat. My personal view of a craftsman is not necessarily someone who's sat producing the most absolutely fine and exquisite detailed pieces of work. Well, that certainly is an aspect of it. It's sort of the mindset of the craftsman and sort of how that ties into tradition. The idea of dedicating yourself to your path as in terms of what you do as work, and taking pride in that. And sort of never reveling in the satisfaction of a job well done, and sort of continuing to push on. Sort of that idea of humility in your work and stuff. I think that goes a long way to create that sort of idea or culture of tradition in a craft. Yes, that is entirely correct, George. Yes, that's an interesting point, John. And I do think that is where woodblock prints can differ and can offer something different from that sort of the idea of, I call it, expensive wallpaper. That is produced. I tend to find that people that purchase woodblock prints tend to know quite a bit about the process and the history, and have quite a deep appreciation for what goes into making these prints. And whilst it's nice to have something that's visually pleasing and is aesthetically pleasing to look at, I would say that probably just as much of a percentage of the decision to purchase one of these prints is because of the appreciation for what goes into producing them. That's certainly the reason that I purchase prints if and when I do. I purchase them because of what I can learn, and if there's a particular level of mastery to the image that I can see, then that's what I tend to look for. The content is sort of secondary to that. That's also why some of these later reproductions are so special, because they were produced at a time when you had some incredibly highly skilled workers that didn't have a ton of work. Japan was very poor. Then had a huge influx of Westerners coming through post-war. So the publishers were able to then keep paying these guys wages similar to what they were on before, but had the option of selling prints for a much higher price. That pushed the quality of the prints through the roof and gave light to the the Shinhanga movement. Yeah, yeah. See, I came to Japanese prints a lot later. So my view of them has always been from a technical standpoint. The first time I saw prints, obviously the imagery and stuff sort of captured my imagination, and the mystique of Japan and what have you. But my first thought when I first saw the series was, I would like to make those, and I'd like to know how they were made. So my brain has always looked at them from a technical standpoint, I suppose. That's not to say that I've never looked at them and just appreciated them as pieces of art, because I'd sit there for hours and hours and flick through books and imagine the life that the people in the prints were living and what Japan was like at the time. And I didn't see my first print until I was 28 years old or something. Yeah, it definitely was, and it probably still is now. It probably still is largely foreigners. But it's like how your grandma or parents or whatever had a stamp collection lying up in the loft for years and years and years that you dust off and find one day. People in Japan have woodblock prints stuffed away up in their dusty attics and stuff, and they were such common fare that there's probably a bit of desensitization that comes into play. And as we've all seen, the popularity of Japan just keeps to the Western world just keeps increasing and increasing. There's more and more tourists going there every year, and the woodblock print is one of the best souvenirs that you can purchase, that symbolises that sort of romantic, mysterious view of old Japan that everyone thinks of. Oh, so you were able to see them from a younger age and stuff. Yeah, I saw my first print at like 28 years old or something like that. I'd almost definitely seen Japanese prints and just never just wandered past them, moving on to something else. But oh, so we're on the hour already. I'm going to do this last section down there and we'll finish up. Yeah, they're really like nothing else in the art world, are they? There's very few things that are as unique in their end product as a Japanese print. But I guess that's from sort of the closed off nature of Japan at the time, and how the craft developed through that period. But right, that's going to be it for this evening, guys. I'll be back on Thursday. We will be continuing to carve this for the next few sessions, and then as soon as the tracing's done on Patreon, that is what we'll be doing all the way through to completion. So we'll see. You'll get to see the entire process from start to finish. So you're just gonna have to hold on a little bit longer till I get this tracing done, and stick with me carving this robot for a bit, and we'll get there. But thank you very much for the interesting conversation, guys. It's been fun. I like to debate and sort of contemplate on these things. You don't get a lot of chance to do it when you're sat in a room on your own all day. But I'll be back same time as always, 7 PM UK time. Yeah, thank you very much, guys, and take care. Have a great week.